Welcome back, everybody. In today's episode of Cooking with Kirby, we are going to be making a picadillo. Today's style of picadillo that I'm going to be showing you guys is more of a breakfast. Now, picadillos are made different ways. I've seen growing up, you know, that they're made for lunch, they're made for breakfast, they're made for dinner. Different people growing up probably seen picadillos with many different ingredients. This style of picadillo we usually had for breakfast.
Now, this right here is 2 pounds of lean ground beef. Now, usually when I make this recipe for my family size, I only use 1 pound, but I had some family coming over, so I needed a little extra meat just to feed them. But 1 pound is good for this recipe.
And we're also gonna need 2 russet potatoes cubed up. These are nice little small squares that we cubed up our potatoes. This is gonna allow the potato to cook a little bit faster. Now over here, we have a cup of sweet corn, a half of an onion chopped up. We got 2 Roma tomatoes chopped up, and then about 2 calabacita squashes quartered up into little triangles. We're also gonna be needing 1 tablespoon of minced garlic. Now we're gonna be needing 2 tablespoons of chili powder. Now, this chili powder is California chili powder. This is not gonna add spice, really heat. It's gonna be adding a good flavor. It's gonna be adding a good color to our picadillo. Now, this food I actually do feed to my kids. So if you want it spicy, you can put New Mexico chili powder or a little bit of cayenne along with this, or you could take a jalapeno pepper or serrano and just saute it with everything as it's cooking. But if you want to add some heat, make sure that this option right here is going to be to your taste. We're also going to be needing 2 teaspoons of oregano.
Now, one ingredient that I did forget that's over there by my stove in the background is I actually had a small can of sweet peas that I added to this.
Then to finish it off, besides just salt and pepper, we're gonna need a can of tomato sauce. So we got our deep saute pan here, and we're gonna go ahead and set our temperature to medium heat. Go ahead and lay down a little bit of cooking oil. All right, after a couple minutes, we're gonna go ahead and check to see if our spoon sizzles. Yeah, it looks like we're about ready. We're gonna go ahead and break apart our beef. So we're gonna let this, now that we got everything pretty much spread out, we're just gonna let it cook for a little bit and then, you know, just pick at it and separate the beef, and then we'll be adding in some other of our ingredients. So basically what we're doing is we're gonna be browning all sides of the beef. You wanna make sure that it's fully cooked. When it comes to ground beef, unless I'm making hamburgers and I grind the meat myself, that's the only way that I'll probably cook like a burger to like medium or medium well. But other than that, like store-bought ground beef, I always cook well done. So keep that in mind because you don't know how they process it. So if there's any bacteria in the beef, you wanna make sure that you kill the bacteria and cook it up to 165 degrees. Now I want you guys to see, if this would have been any higher fat content, this would have been a lot of juices coming from that beef. So this is very minimal, you know, juices that it's releasing out of this beef. So that's why you go with a little bit higher of a lean meat. Like I said, if you were gonna use 80-20 or some other ratio, you're gonna have a lot of juices that you're gonna have to take out. So some of that fat is really good for flavor, but you know, if you have a whole lot in there, you don't want a whole lot in this. All right, now that we have our beef browned on all sides, we're gonna go ahead and add in our potatoes. Now we're gonna just go ahead and mix in our potatoes. Now the potatoes are gonna be a little longer on the cook, so that's why we're adding them right after the beef. It's okay, we got a lot of juices in there, so we're gonna go ahead and cover this. And we're actually, right now, we're gonna go ahead and hit it with just a little bit of salt and pepper. Go ahead and hit with a little bit of salt and pepper. And some fresh cracked black pepper. Seasoned salt to taste, salt and pepper to taste. You know, some of my relatives, they have really heavy salt palates, so you know they're always adding in salt to my recipes. But you know, I've actually cut down on how much sodium I use in my recipes, so you know, you don't need to be having a whole lot. So if somebody actually needs it, they can always add it. So we're gonna go ahead and cover this, and we're gonna let it go for like about 2 to 3 minutes, just to kind of get a little cook time on those potatoes. All right, after a couple minutes, go ahead and give everything a stir. Now we are gonna let this cook down and let it simmer for a little bit. because I'm gonna be adding in the tomato sauce and all those other ingredients. So now let's go ahead and add in our tomato, along with our corn, our squash. You're probably wondering I should have used a bigger pan, and you're absolutely right. But it's a deep dish, so we'll roll with it. Now for our onions. Okay, so now we're gonna take our dry oregano with our hands and we're gonna be grinding it in. Add in our garlic. Let's go ahead and mix everything up. We're a little tight on space, but it's all good. We're gonna make it happen. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and add in our tomato sauce and add in our chili powder. Now those two colors right there, that's gonna make this dish pop. I also did forget an ingredient. We're gonna be adding a 8.5 ounce of sweet peas. And we got the juice in there too. Okay, so right now we are gonna be adding in a little bit more salt. Now again, salt to taste. Now we did increase the amount of stuff that we just added into this, so we're gonna catch up. Final it off with a little bit of cracked black pepper. The aromas are smelling good though. Let's go ahead and just check that juice to see. Actually, let's put a potato in there, see how close we are. Check for seasoning. I'm gonna add just a couple more pinches of salt. There, right there. The potatoes does need a little bit more time, but they're almost done. All right, let's go ahead and check that juice again. All right, that's good. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and just cover this. We're gonna let this simmer for about 8 minutes or so, just until the rest of those veggies soften up and your potatoes cook through. All right, so after about 8 minutes, we're gonna go ahead and check on our potatoes and some of our other veggies. This smells really good. Now, I'm also gonna be adding some beans with this and some rice, but I've put that on my channel before. I'll make sure to leave those videos at the end of this video so that way you can see how I make beans. I do beans 2 ways, but for this, just regular refried beans. Go ahead and get a little bit of potato and that squash. It's yummy. Perfect. So we're gonna let this sit for just a couple minutes. Right now it's all loose and full of juices. As it cools down just a tad bit, or it's not so hot, it's actually gonna thicken up on us. So we're gonna just let this sit for just a couple minutes. And in that meantime, I'm gonna whip up some refried beans real quick and we'll plate our food up and we'll give it to the taste test. Look at that, y'all. Now that's a plate of food. If I was selling food in a restaurant, this is a plate that you'd be able to get. This right here can be breakfast, could be brunch, could be lunch, it could be dinner. However or when you want to make it, you can do it. So what I like to do is a little bit, just take your flour tortilla, get a little bit of your picadillo, a little bit of your beans, and some of that rice. And just put it all together. That way you get all 3 ingredients in one bite. Just really, really good flavor. Reminds me of growing up, just some good old Mexican comfort food. If you're new to my channel, consider hitting the subscribe button. That way you can see future videos just like this. Or you can just do it by itself. That's packed with flavor right there. As always, I'll leave the link in the video description and in the comment section so that way you can go to my website, cookingwithkirby.com, to get the full printable recipe. Now, for the beans and rice recipe, they're right here, along with a really, really good salsa. Now, check those out. Now, y'all be beautiful and take care.